Welcome to the Meathead Marksman channel, the premier news source for northwestern, central, southeast Queensland shooting news. It's warm, so I'm going to have some frosty, zero alcohol beers today. Great Northerns, very tasty, especially when it's cold beer on a hot day. So, before we kick off, I feel it's important to make you aware, if you aren't already, you probably should be if you've been following the show, but I am an Element Optics Pro Staff team member, which means Element sends me scopes, I get to use them, and I make videos on them. So that is my relationship with Element Optics. It's a good one. I can say whatever I want to say, and I don't have to use their scopes if I don't want to. I have a library of other very expensive scopes, but at the moment I'm using Element scopes and I really like them. So that is the angle that I'm coming from. That is my bias, if you will. With that being said, we'll move on to today's news. Element Optics is releasing the Helix in first focal plane, which is really good. That was the only sort of markdown that you could really give the Helix for its price tag. You know, it's within that level. They are going to slap a $500 price tag US on it, which is going to put it, when you transfer that over to Aussie dollars, you have to add 10% for the goods and services tax that we have, and then account for the exchange rate. So that's going to be about 750 Aussie dollars, which puts it into an interesting price bracket. Pretty much anything between sort of $600 to $800 is pretty competitive right now. There's lots of lower end scopes that it competes with. We will go through and have a look at these new reticles. We will have a look at the pros and cons of them, and then we will have a look at some other scopes from other companies that I've dug up to have a look at and compare and see whether or not you think the Helix is a better option or not, depending on your needs, because we all need different things. So let's kick off with this here press release. This is the information card for the new all-purpose reticles. The first generation of APR, or all-purpose reticle, were introduced in all of our early rifle scope models in both C and D, clean and dirty variants, giving the shooter options to cater to his or her needs. This variant, the APR1, was offered in MRAD only and crossed the boundaries of price tiers, being available across our range from least to most expensive. The introduction of the second generation comes as a result of valuable feedback from various experts and professionals from a vast array of shooting disciplines. We kept the core elements the same while making fine adjustments to better suit precision shooting disciplines such as NRL, PRS and long range. Our focus with the APR2D is to provide a worthy partner for the highly capable new Helix first focal plane, a rifle scope that we believe will make waves in the precision rifle scene as a refined and reliable option with a very reasonable price tag. You shouldn't have to pay big money for high-end reticles. I support that statement. It is very annoying to see so many. It seems like such a simple thing to change a reticle. It seems like scope companies are trying to reserve that function of having that highly functional reticle for their very expensive scopes, to force you to buy the expensive scope if you want it. I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult to put it in there. Like, if it is a business move to put only dirty reticles in high-end scopes, and you're trying to, you know, steer more people to the tall end of your lineup, I get it, but it's kind of jack. Due to the popularity of the APR1D, we are now offering the APR2D in both MRAD and MOA, providing an option for shooters wanting the fine center dot and one-click scale in MOA. The EHR, the expedited hold reticle, will remain as the MOA option for our second focal plane Helix, being a popular choice amongst shooters wanting a less cluttered design. And I think that's probably a good idea. I don't really see much of a reason to have such a dirty reticle in a second focal plane scope, because I think the functionality, the coolest thing you can do with a dirty reticle like this one is to measure your misses. So you line up on your target, you take your shot, you're blown off by the wind, and the splash lands 2.7 mils low and left, and you've got a dot there because you saw where it splashed, and you can see the very next dot next to it, and you can quickly make that adjustment either by aiming off with the reticle or you can dial. And I think with a second focal plane reticle, if you haven't got your magnification all the way up to where the reticle is calibrated, there's just too much maths to have to figure out the math that you have to do at whatever magnification you're at to really capitalize on that functionality of that reticle. It would just be busier than it would be useful. So I think it's probably a good move to leave the clean ones alone on the second focal plane. So it doesn't say whether or not that will remain with the MRAD option, but yeah, there you go. So here is a look at the APR2D MOA, how it looks through the Helix 6-24 by 50 FFP. So when you're zoomed all the way out, obviously the reticle changes size because it's in the first focal plane, and then when you crank it right the way up, you can see that you have a fair amount of busyness in this zoomed in reticle, but it still looks very usable to me. So after using the Titan is fine at 25x. The lines like the reticle subtensions, I suppose, a nice thickness. It's not annoying to have. It's not too big at full magnification, and it's a little bit fine on low magnification, but still not terrible. It's still usable. APR2D MRAD, how it looks through the Helix. Same again, just ever so slightly different. We've got our MRAD numbers on there instead of our MOA numbers. Very good. It's a good looking reticle. I like it. And there they are side by side. MRAD and MOA living in harmony, as we all should be. Let's have us a bo peep at the product photos. So here we are, Helix 6-24 by 50 FFP, pretty much exactly the same as the second focal plane from the outside looking in. We've got some cool pictures of a dude with a gun. Take it outside. Nice, nice. The only notable difference that I can see is that obviously because it's an FFP, they don't need to put the red markings on the magnification ring to show you where to stop if you want to do the maths quickly for your second focal plane subtensions. Much easier to not have to do that. Much easier. Good looking scope though. Good looking scope. So there you have it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you interested in spending 750 Aussie dollars on a new Element Helix FFP? Wonderful stuff. Let's look at some of the competitive options. So I typically use this here Optics Planet website because they have a nice search function in the side, and that gives me a quick way of finding competitive options for scopes. It's pretty bad though because like I want all of them. So I find stuff like I'll be scrolling around and I find this Burris XTR2 on special and I want it. I don't need it because I have the 3-15 on my safe over there, but I'm still sitting here convincing myself that I need to buy another scope. So we're gonna be quick here. We're gonna find what we want and then we're gonna get out. So so I have found scopes that have 10 meter parallax, 6-24 by 50, first focal plane options, tactical turrets, and matching tactical turrets. We're not even going to entertain that whole mil-dot reticle MOA turrets nonsense. That is a thing of the past. Unacceptable. So the first option we're going to have a look at is from my good friends down at Hermannnnns Sporting Guns, the Optixan EVX 6-24 by 50 F1. This has been quite a popular scope in Australia. It's roughly right around that same price tag, that estimated price tag-ish, $750. The Optixan is $770-ish, so ever so slightly more expensive. They're pretty good. They're not the best, but they're pretty good. They do the job. They have all of the things that you're going to want, like your 10-yard parallax, your tactical turrets, and they are of a reasonable quality. I didn't have any dramas with mine. I had one on my FX Crown for a while. They do have kind of it feels like they're made out of a slightly softer material than what the Helix is made out of. The aluminium tube, I guess, is not quite as robust. My dad has one on his Impact, and somehow that scope got bent. I'm not sure how, but it might have been bumped around in the safe or bumped in its case or something happened to it, or it was bent from the factory, I don't know. Had to send it back under warranty. So something to note, Optixan will bend if you bend it. So be careful with your Optixan. That would be my advice. They do have a good warranty though, and Hermannnnns will help you out if you break it, you know, if it's coverable by warranty. So let's look at the reticle. The reticle is technically a dirty reticle, if you want to call it that, but it's a very simple one. It's basically just a Christmas tree. It's not comprehensive like the Helix reticle is. And as you can see close up, there are no numbers on it. There is only 10 right down the bottom, and the only other information on the reticle is mil off to the right here. So you are going to want to have to count pretty much all the way up and down, make sure that the subtension that you're looking at is a single MRAD and not a half MRAD. You got to be careful with that. So a little bit slower and not quite as effective as far as reticles go. One other thing that is important to note is the turrets. The turrets on the Helix are better than the turrets on the Optixan. There's no question in my mind about that at all. Two reasons why. The Optixan is 4.8 mils per turn, which is annoying. It'd be nice if it was 5, but they also have a smaller range. So the adjustment range is 15 mil, 15 MRAD, and the adjustment range on the Helix is 18.9 MRAD or 65 MOA. So 18.9 MRAD is a lot of elevation, and obviously you cut that in half because you want to be in the middle. So you've got a fair amount of up and down, but much more on the Helix than you have on the Optixan. The other thing about the turrets for the Optixan is the clicks are not as positive as they are on the Helix. The Helix has much nicer clicks. I've been very impressed with both of my element scopes as far as clicks go. The Titan, which is in the same price bracket as my much beloved XTR2 Burris, right around that sort of $1,500 to $2,000 mark. The clicks on the Titan are way better than the Burris. The turrets are just made better, so keep that in mind. And the turrets on the Optixan are basically like sticking your fingers in mashed potatoes and then, you know, giving it the how you going. Not very impressive. They do work, important to note, they do work, but they're just not as nice, and it's pretty easy to put the turret back on when you zero it and have it off center a little bit, and it's kind of hard to tell which click you're actually on. I'm sure you've all used scopes that were just the little tiniest of bit off. The Optixan is a good option, don't get me wrong, but it is not as good as some of these other options that we're looking at. I feel like it's almost a bit of a stretch to want $780 for it. It seems like a lot of money for an Optixan. It makes more sense if you're buying a second focal plane Optixan, because they are much cheaper than their first focal plane ones. It's like the first focal plane reticle just adds like $300 to the price tag, and it just doesn't seem right to me. Something to be aware of. It seems like the Optixan first focal plane scopes maybe aren't the best value for money. But I did enjoy my time with it, and it did the job that I wanted it to do. Next option, Vortex Diamondback, first focal plane, 6 to 24 by 50 with the EBR2C reticle. This reticle is dirtier than the Optixan reticle, but not as dirty as the Helix. This one does appear to have numbers on it, which is nice, but doesn't go all the way down. When you zoom this bad boy out, you're only looking at still that same top half Christmas tree. It's not a complete dirty reticle, at least from the pictures that I can see. Now, I've never used a Vortex Diamondback, so I can't really speak to the clarity, but looking at the Vortex lineup, it looks like the glass is probably the same low-end glass as like your Crossfires and Diamondbacks and that sort of stuff. It's all pretty low-level stuff. I have had 2 Vortex scopes in the past. I had a 6 to 24 by 50 PST Gen 1, and it was alright. It wasn't fantastic. It was kind of a little bit milky at the high end, which seems to be typical of cheaper 6 to 24 by 50 zoom range scopes. So whatever it is that causes that definitely caused it on my scope. And I also had a Vortex red dot sight on my 7600, and that thing broke, which was very annoying, but they have a good warranty, so you can swap them out, no questions asked. It was like, this doesn't work, and they're like, here's another one, and I'm like, thank you. But Still, that's annoying when you put all of your effort into actually going out, getting to the range or going out on a hunt, and then it breaks. It's kind of annoying. So it seems like that is a common theme among reviewers at the moment for Vortex gear, at least for the low end gear. It seems like everybody really loves the high end gear, and like the Vortex razors seem to be a really good option, but I think these cheaper ones, the quality control's not quite as good, and they're not quite as ruggedly designed. They seem to break quite a bit. I've heard quite a few complaints about the Strike Eagles. Now, if you have a Strike Eagle and you love it, cool, happy for you. I'm just telling you what I've heard. You may have issues with your Vortex as far as quality control goes if you're buying a lower end one. Not that big of a deal if you're happy to deal with the warranty, because they have a great warranty, but still annoying and still worth mentioning. Does, however, have pretty much all of the other options that the Helix FFP has available in MRAD and MOA. Zero stop, not as nice as the zero stop on the Helix, but whatever. ED glass, which is pretty good, and the turrets have the same amount of elevation and windage as the Helix does, so it's sort of a little bit more in line with it. And as far as choosing goes, if you're choosing between the Optixan and the Vortex Diamondback, I think the Vortex Diamondback is better suited for heavier centerfire applications. They do specifically say on the Optixan page that you should only use it on medium caliber centerfires, which is a little bit vague for my liking. Alas, they don't say that for the Vortex Diamondback Tactical, so if you're putting it on a centerfire, that's probably a better way to go. But aside from that, 10-yard parallax, very versatile. Tactical turrets, I would be shocked. I haven't handled one, but I would be shocked if the turrets are as nice as the Helix turrets. But they are cheaper. So in Australia, you can get a first focal plane Diamondback for as little as $620-ish. That's probably going to be $100 cheaper than the Helix from my guesstimations, from my speculations and guesstimations. So if you only have that much money to spend, then obviously that's your option. With all that said, let's have a look at the Helix on Utah Airgun's website. Beautiful scope. The Helix is fine to put on whatever centerfire you want to put it on. So definitely more durable than the Optixan, in my humble opinion. Better turrets, probably better turrets than the Vortex, and just a better design, in my opinion. I think it has heaps of elevation, heaps of windage, 10-yard parallax. It's got everything now that it has the first focal plane reticle with the dirty options, a proper dirty optioned reticle. It pretty much looks like a Horus H59 style reticle. They are generally only available on very, very expensive scopes. Even some of the expensive scopes you'll see, like the proper high-end Night Force and all of that sort of stuff, if you look at the price of the Night Force and you're like, ooh, that's pricey, but it's good. And then you look at the reticle options and you look at how much more expensive a big dirty reticle is in a Night Force than the standard clean reticles are, you're going to be like, oh, it is eye-wateringly, it's like 5k plus in Australia. So nasty, nasty. You don't want to be dealing with that. So I will put some links to all of these scopes so you can have a squiz around yourself. I will link the Australian distributor for Element Optics, and hopefully the shipment will actually be here soon so you can actually get one. But you can email them and ask them any questions that you might have. Tell me what do you think? Jump in the comments, drop a comment how you feel about first focal plane versus second focal plane, whether or not you think it's a good idea to have a dirty reticle. I'm all ears. I love my dirty reticle in my Titan. My Helix has the clean reticle. I've very much been enjoying the dirty reticle in the Titan. It looks great. And let me know what you think Element Optics should make next. I want a 2-10x42. I want basically a loopholed Mark IV, ruggedized, wide field of view with all the other features that they normally have. That's what I want. It's a big ask. But if Burris can do it, Element can do it. So, thanks for watching. See you next time.